Section 3. Reunion and Reflection. This final section, which contains chapters 8, 9, 10, and 11, brings the narrative into a more reflective tone, focusing on the long-term effects of war, the process of aging, and the importance of memory and reunion. It explores how the characters reconcile their pasts with their present and the enduring impact of their experiences. Overview, Chapter 8. Early Season Rain. Early Season Rain is a reflective narrative that captures the essence of life in the South Vietnamese countryside during the early monsoon season. The story unfolds through the eyes of Nam, a man who returns to his rural roots after nearly 50 years, evoking a deep sense of nostalgia and connection to his past. The peaceful rural setting. The story begins with a vivid description of the South Vietnamese countryside at the onset of the rainy season. Nam, the protagonist, sits quietly on a stool under the eaves, lost in thought as he observes the approaching storm. The heavy clouds, gentle breeze, and the first drops of rain transport him back to his youth, when life was simpler and nature played a more central role in daily life. Memory and change. As the rain begins to fall, Nam reflects on the changes that have taken place over the decades. He remembers the vibrant garden of fruit trees where he grew up, the large ancestral home with its red-tiled roof, and the simple joys of childhood, such as collecting mushrooms and catching fish in the rain. However, time and war have altered the landscape and the lives of those who remained. The once grand house has been reduced to a smaller, more modest dwelling, and the bustling garden is now a shadow of its former self. The impact of war. The narrative also touches on the impact of the Vietnam War on Nam's family and community. His cousin Hien, a former South Vietnamese army officer, recounts his experiences during and after the war, including the injuries he sustained and the hardships he faced upon returning to civilian life. The war left deep scars, not only on the land but also on the people, as Hien's life was irrevocably changed, and the community was forced to adapt to new realities under the communist regime. The passage of time and nostalgia. Throughout the story, Nam grapples with the passage of time. He is acutely aware of how much has changed, yet finds comfort in the familiar sights, sounds, and smells of his childhood. The narrative emphasizes the transient nature of life, with the early rain serving as a metaphor for the fleeting beauty of youth and the inevitability of change. Despite the physical and emotional distance created by time, Nam's return to his roots allows him to reconnect with his past and find solace in the memories that shaped him. Overview, Chapter 9. Rain Bubbles. Rain Bubbles is a poignant and real love story set during the Vietnam War, exploring themes of love, loss, and the harsh realities of a war-torn country. The narrative revolves around Tam, a former South Vietnamese Air Force officer whose life is marked by the struggles and heartbreaks of the war. The tragedy of war. The story opens with a reflection on the Vietnam War, portraying it as a destructive conflict that tore families and communities apart. The war is described as a conflict driven by foreign ideologies and political greed, leading to widespread suffering and the breakdown of normal life in South Vietnam after April 30, 1975. A childhood marked by hardship. Tam's childhood is depicted as one of great hardship, growing up as an orphan in a challenging environment. He lived with his uncle in a poor neighborhood, where he had to work hard from a young age to survive. Tam's early years were filled with struggles, but he showed resilience and determination, working various jobs, including delivering newspapers and selling goods, to support himself while pursuing his education. Love and romantic aspirations. As Tam grows older, his life takes a significant turn when he joins the South Vietnamese Air Force. It is during this time that he meets Lone, a beautiful and intelligent young woman who captures his heart. Their love story is filled with innocence and hope, but it is also marked by the uncertainties and dangers of the ongoing war. The narrative captures the delicate and blossoming romance between Tam and Lone, despite the looming threat of separation due to Tam's military duties. The cruelty of war and its impact on love. Tam's life is further complicated by the war, which eventually leads to his separation from Lone. After suffering an injury during a military operation, Tam loses contact with Lone. The story poignantly describes how their love is tested by the distance and the harsh realities of war. Lone, left in despair, struggles with the uncertainty of Tam's fate, while Tam, isolated and injured, longs to reunite with her. The pain of separation and loss. The story reaches its emotional peak when Tam learns that Lone has moved away, and all efforts to reconnect with her fail. The tragic separation and the unfulfilled love between Tam and Lone highlight the deep, personal losses that the war inflicted on many individuals. Tam's sorrow and the eventual death of his wife, whom he marries later, further emphasize the theme of loss. Overview, Chapter 10. Wings of Vietnam. Wings of Vietnam tells the story of Tuan, a former South Vietnamese Air Force captain who reflects on his past, particularly his relationships with old friends like Tam and Trung. The narrative unfolds as Tuan unexpectedly reunites with these friends after many years, recalling their shared experiences during the Vietnam War and its aftermath. Friendship and reunion. The story begins with Tuan's surprise reunion with Tam, whom he hasn't seen in over 20 years. This meeting stirs deep emotions, bringing back memories of their time together in Pleiku, where both served as Air Force officers. Their bond was forged during the war, with Tam sharing stories of his tragic love life and family struggles with Tuan. War and separation. The narrative recounts how the Vietnam War tore apart these friendships. After the fall of Saigon, Tam was captured and imprisoned by the communist forces, while Tuan managed to escape to the United States with his family. Over the years, Tuan lost touch with Tam and feared the worst for his friend, who seemingly disappeared after the war. Love and loss. Tuan reminisces about Tam's past, particularly his ill-fated relationship with La, a woman he loved deeply. La tragically died in a bomb explosion, a loss that deeply scarred Tam. This event is one of the many tragedies that haunt the characters, illustrating the profound impact of war on personal lives. Survival and resilience. The story also highlights Trung's harrowing escape from a communist re-education camp and his subsequent journey to the United States. Trung, a former pilot, endured significant hardship during his escape, including organizing a perilous sea journey to flee Vietnam. His reunion with Tuan and Tam symbolizes the resilience and survival of those who fled the post-war communist regime. The legacy of war. As the characters reminisce, the story delves into the lasting legacy of the Vietnam War on their lives. The memories of loss, love, and survival continue to shape their identities and relationships. Despite the passage of time, the war's impact remains deeply embedded in their lives. Overview, Chapter 11. Last Leaves of the Season. Last Leaves of the Season is a reflective and nostalgic narrative by Nam, capturing the experiences and emotions of Vietnamese veterans and immigrants as they navigate life in the United States, decades after the end of the Vietnam War. The story revolves around the theme of aging, the passage of time, and the bittersweet memories of a bygone era. The passage of time and nostalgia. The author opens with a philosophical reflection on the inevitability of change and the natural cycle of life, likening it to the falling of leaves at the end of the season. He muses on the futility of resisting these changes and the acceptance that comes with age. This sets the tone for the narrative, which is deeply embedded in memories and the passing of years. Reunions and the bonds of brotherhood. Nam recounts his experiences attending reunions with fellow members of his military class, 63A, and other veterans from his former Air Force squadron. These gatherings are filled with camaraderie as old friends reconnect, share stories, and reminisce about their shared past. The reunions are not just social events, but also a way to maintain the bonds forged during the war and in the years following their resettlement in the United States. The immigrant experience. The narrative also delves into the immigrant experience, particularly the challenges and triumphs of starting over in a new country. Nam reflects on his journey to the U.S., his efforts to build a new life, and his sense of pride in having raised a family and contributed to his community. He emphasizes the importance of resilience and adaptability, qualities that have helped him and his peers thrive in their adopted homeland. Aging and reflection. As the story progresses, the author reflects more deeply on aging. He describes the physical and emotional changes that come with it, such as the slower pace of life, the increased tendency to reminisce, and the sense of loss as friends and comrades pass away. The metaphor of the last leaves of the season poignantly captures the sense of an era coming to an end, as the veterans confront the reality of their mortality. Legacy and continuity. Despite the melancholy that pervades the narrative, there is also a sense of fulfillment and peace. Nam expresses satisfaction with the life he has lived and the legacy he leaves behind. He urges his peers to continue cherishing their shared history and to support one another as they navigate the final stages of their lives. The complete audiobook of The Last Flight Out by Nguyen Van Ba can be purchased on platforms like Google Play and others. Please subscribe to this channel for more content like this.